the We Got You Mama podcast. I am so excited because you guys always hear me talking about ADHD and how it affects me and how my brain is wired. And I'm really trying to empower more moms, more women, more families, parents to understand it better so they know how to function more wholly, I feel like, in life, right? And so I have this beautiful expert with me today. Her bio is really short, but I feel like it could be like 3 pages long. I've had the opportunity to take some of her coaching and some of her courses. I attended some summits where she was a speaker at, and I was like, we need to be friends. So I reached out and I was like, let's be friends. Also, can you coach me and my family and my girls? So Jheri South is a certified teen and parent coach. She's a master ADHD instructor and a mom of 7 neurodivergent kids and founder of Headspace Hub. Jheri supports individuals with ADHD using practical coaching strategies that work. No therapy, just real results. She also empowers teens, parents, and families to communicate better. I think we could all really use some solid skills in communicating better. She also helps them build confidence and overcome habits that hold them back. So she's the creator of ADHD Simplified. Jheri offers one-on-one coaching, online courses, and in-person workshops to help people take control of their lives. And all of her things will be, the links, all the fun things will be in the show notes. But let's dive right into it. I think I want to talk first about like your journey and then like how you got here. And I know you are so kind to be such an open book. And sometimes people find that, in my case, like I can be a little overwhelming sometimes, or I overshare. And I like to bring a comedic tone to my oversharing. But you reframe that differently. You're like, I'm an open book. I'm here to help people learn from not only your expertise, but like from your story, which is, I think, really special.
Well, there's something that happens when we're vulnerable. It's really funny. I remember like years ago reading about vulnerability. I thought it was really interesting. Brene Brown was talking about this, that when we see other people being vulnerable, it feels, I don't know, courageous. So people are so brave. Thank you for sharing. It inspires me. It helps me. I learn from other people's vulnerability. But then when we are being vulnerable ourselves, many times within ourselves, we see it as a sign of weakness. Like, I don't want to tell people that about my life. I don't want people to know, the messy stuff. And so knowing that ADHDers really struggle with self-confidence, I've really never had a client with ADHD that hasn't struggled to some degree with the way that they see themselves. Then I know that being vulnerable and real, talking about my own struggles, what I've been through as a mom with my children in business, the wins and the losses, it really helps other ADHDers feel supported. I'm not alone. I'm not broken. This person's been through many of the same things I have, and they see ADHD as a blessing, as a strength. That's interesting. What does that mean for me? So I'm always wanting to have that conversation as much as I can out in the open on podcasts and public to help inspire other people, because I feel like when it comes to ADHD, it has been so debilitating and a big problem at times in my life and for those of my children. And then at the same time, I'm able to now look at ADHD and say, don't take it away from me. I love it. I couldn't be where I am today without ADHD.
Yeah. And with the proper, like, I call it like channeling, right? Like, and support, which is, what We Got You Mama is all about, is just providing more resources of support so we can thrive instead of feel like we're surviving. It really does and can feel like a superpower.
Yes.
And I would not have said that ever. Probably even like 2 years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a journey, but it's really empowering to be able to learn and to just really get knowledgeable on how you're wired, and then work within systems that work for your brain. And it's fascinating. And then once, you're a parent of neurodivergent children and you are becoming more whole yourself and knowledgeable, you can extend that out to your children, which I think is key. But you talk about the differences, right? I see the differences between myself and my daughters. You know, my youngest is hyperactive. My oldest daughter is very introspective and perfectionist and really, really hard on herself. Um, and then I feel like I'm kind of smashed in between those two, and I have like different things that they both have.
Mhm.
How does that work when you're working with people and not diagnosing, but in a sense, like what type do you have, or what type does this kid have, or what happens? And I know I'm throwing a bunch of questions in a row, but what happens when your kid isn't diagnosed and you're like, but they do, and you know they do, and I've been through it, and you don't want to see your kid go through it without the support and resources that are available to them at school when they get that proper diagnosis. And how it's overseen in girls. Like, I'm very passionate about that because I wasn't diagnosed until I was, I think, probably around the same time as you were. You said late 30s, I think, right before 40. Same for me.
Mhm.
um and like, I'll be damned if that girl doesn't get help because this girl didn't get help, right?
Mhm. Yeah, well, and the thing with ADHD, even just labels, is that I have a love-hate relationship with labels because labels gives us information. It's like, okay, we have more of an instruction manual for our brain. We understand probably what this brain is going to respond to, what kind of supports it could potentially need. But because ADHD is such a big spectrum, the same way autism is a spectrum, so is ADHD. And one of the common mistakes I'll see is that within families, we'll look at someone else who is neurodivergent and we'll say, well, I don't do that, so I probably don't have ADHD, or I'm probably wrong about that. I don't struggle with the same things, when it could look very different, just family member to family member. So even though there is good reason at times to have a label, it does help us when we're trying to get supports in school, that this is a real diagnosis. A doctor has given it to us. If we're trying to get any kind of medication treatment, it's important. But for the work I do, for example, with behavioral coaching, many times I recognize that I think the diagnosis is incorrect. And of course, I can't diagnose people, but all 7 of my children are neurodivergent. Most of them have ADHD. 6 of the 7 are on the spectrum. My husband's on the spectrum. I have ADHD. So I'm living this all the time. So when I'm with a client and they're struggling and the help isn't helping, I can identify, oh, that's because they're also experiencing OCD, or they're also on the spectrum and nobody's caught that yet. So recognizing it's more about getting really good at understanding our child's brain. What are the things specifically that they're dealing with? Is there time processing delays? Do they need more kind of time supports, organizational supports? We think of ADHD as being a disorder of hyperactivity, but actually only 1/3 of all ADHDers are hyperactive. Many times it's hyperarousal, trouble sleeping. The trouble that we have focusing is like being easily distracted or hyper focusing on some things and not other things. And so many ADHDs are labeled as being lazy, not trying hard enough, not wanting to, not having a desire. And there can be some criticism for, why don't they go after something harder? Why don't they try harder? Why don't they care more? When really we're not, the person who's looking at it this way doesn't understand the way that their brain works. So my goal is always to figure out, where is this individual finding debilitation in their lives? Where is this hindering their progress? Where is this a problem? And then let's speak to those things and help them. It might just be emotional regulation they need, or it might be help with executive function, but what kind of help? So it's a lot more, it's kind of like beyond the label of just ADHD.
Yeah. And what are some of the tools and tactics you use for, I mean, let's give my youngest, for example, and I'm like fresh off of it last night. I feel like with everyone, as it always is with lots of kids.
Yes.
But it was like, girlfriend, get it together, and it was
Yeah.
like, as much as you're like, do you need this first before you settle into homework? Do are you fed? Did you get out some energy? Did you, like, let me squeeze you for a little while? Do you need some, mom time? And it was like, she took 4 hours to do her little packet of third grade homework. And we were like, what it like, and we threw around like, you can't, be on the dance team if it's going to take you this long to do it, because you need to learn, to structure your time, and we're helping you. And we set a timer, and she's like, oh, she's a riot and she's hilarious. But when it's 10 p.m. and you're like, listen, 9-year-old, bedtime. And since 2, she was like, I'm wide awake. And it doesn't matter what you did for bedtime routine. She'd be like rehearsing, a musical in her, freaking crib, at night. Just, she's always performing. And yet she is pretty on track all day at school. Doesn't have, much of a problem, which is fascinating. So if like I came to you, I'm getting coaching right now, you guys.
That's right.
And was like, what is happening? And what would just, obviously we would have like a whole intake thing, but what would be some like tools and tricks that maybe someone like her could utilize?
Well, it makes sense. If she's doing well in school all day, that means she's masking all day. So she doesn't want to do homework when she gets home. She's bored. She's already done work all day long that's boring. She's masked through that. She's followed the rules. She's done what she's been asked to do. Now she has to go home and do more of that. So it makes perfect sense to me that someone with ADHD would take forever to do a little packet because they've already done that all day. Boring is one of the most heavy, overwhelming emotions for someone with ADHD. So we avoid it like the plague. We're searching. Yeah. Oh, no.
That, like, it's almost physically like uncomfortable or something, be like bored, or I remember sharing we're like in traffic or something. You're like, this is like really like, I'm not okay with it.
Yes, skin is crawling. It feels so heavy. Teenagers are like, I have nothing to live for when I don't have anything going on in my lives. So we'll do anything to avoid that feeling. And we're dopamine chasers. So we're constantly looking for things that are exciting. We're going to do those things first. We just don't want to be bored. So that's the first thing, is of course she's not going to do very well at that. And then we have an acronym that we use, that I use, it's WIRED, to help us remember what engages the ADHD brain. So WIRED stands for wants, interest, rivalry, which is like challenge or competition, emergency, which is similar to urgency, and then desire, which is like novelty. And so one of those 5 things has to be present for the ADHD brain to get engaged. So when we're just arguing back and forth with our child, do it, it's due, it's important, that does nothing for their brain. For my ADHD brain, just because something in front of me is important, that is nothing for me. My brain's not like, oh, it's important, let me do this. I want to do it because it's important, but that is not enough. My brain stays offline. So to get my brain online, I know that one of those 5 things has to be present, like passion or novelty or interest or urgency, right? Or competition, or else my brain does not do anything. Even when we're using rewards, many times we will say rewards don't do anything for the ADHD brain. That's not totally true. It has to engage one of those 5 things. So if you just come up with the reward, like we'll get ice cream if you can finish your math homework, and ADHD is probably
what I said.
Doesn't work.
You can have ice cream if you finish your math page.
This is what they're going to think. Great. Now I'm never going to finish my math and I don't get ice cream.
Right.
Because it wasn't enough to get their brain to figure out how to really engage. They might want ice cream, but it's not enough because math is so overwhelming. So when we're sitting down, coming up with rewards, we have to sit down with our child and come up with things that will actually help them, that will actually work, something that engages one of those 5 things that kicks their brain into gear. And the problem is they don't know why. They don't know why they're so inconsistent, why sometimes they're able to hyper focus and just get things done, and other times they're not at all. And so as adults, we don't know, they don't know. So it's really hurting their self-esteem. It's creating extra shame that we're saying, why can't you do this? Why can't you sit still? Your sister can do it. How come you could do it last time and you can't do it this time? They're thinking, I don't know. I have no idea. So as adults, we want to teach this to them, right? Like this is what engages your brain. Let me help you figure this out.
Yeah. And so they come up with solutions based on their, based on the wired framework. Like you help them, you draw out from their brain what would work for them while you're interviewing
them. This
them.
is why we want to teach them all of this. This is why adults, whether you have ADHD or not, we want to learn so that we can help children understand their brain instead of just asking them questions that they can't answer. Why aren't you doing this? Why are you doing that instead? Why can't you sit still? Why didn't you get this done? They're like, I don't know, my brain wouldn't do it. I'm just so bored. My brain
Because
is
I would rather sing or rap.
That's an honest answer. She'd rather sing.
That's
More
what she does.
fun. More
And then
fun.
doodles over her entire paper. So I come back and I think she looks like she is just in it. And I was like, oh my gosh, those are really intricate pictures of a bunch of different fruit. Nice job. And I was like, can we get back to the actual?
Exactly. Exactly. Well, the other thing is depending on how much homework they have, like the ADHD brain gets so easily overwhelmed. So you could say, okay, we're gonna clean your room. And it doesn't matter if they've cleaned their room 100 times before, their brain is thinking, oh my gosh, this is going to take forever. I'm never going to get done. It will never be finished. This will take forever, right? And so we have to show our brain, okay, actually, let's just break it up into dusting, vacuuming, laundry, I don't know, making bed. This will take 10 minutes. This will take 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Oh, okay, I can do that. It's like we have to show our brain how to not be overwhelmed. And then maybe for kids, it's like, okay, do this for 10 minutes, take a 5 minute break. Do this for 5 minutes, take a 5 minute break. They can do that, but they're not good at breaking down the process for themselves. So even a packet of work, it could be, listen, you do this page, you can take a 10 minute break and then do the next page. They can get on board when they can. ADHD brains want to know what's involved, how long is it going to take, and when am I going to be done? So if we just throw a packet at them, they're like, this will take forever. Well, what do you do when you have the thought this will take forever? You immediately go do something else.
You
You
take
sing.
forever.
You go sing.
Yeah.
Right? So
Yes.
just little things like that make a huge difference.
It's a huge, she has started making her own lists. Like she's finding that that helps herself, which is amazing. And she'll make her own list and then draw pictures next to, next to
Mm,
each one. Cause I'm like, we need to do these 4 things before, we head out to, the birthday party or whatever. And she's like,
right.
okay, what's the order of those things? What does it involve? Do I need to vacuum the car as well as spray the windows? You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, okay, mom needs to be more specific, and
Right.
apply time blocks to, that because they really, same with Elsie, my oldest, she loves to know what to expect. Tell me what to expect. Tell me how much time is involved. She hates being late. Can we go? Can we go?
Mm,
Can we go? Yes, we can go. Can you help get everyone else out the door? And maybe
yes.
we'll be on time. I don't know.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I know. So it's just understanding your child. And that's the thing. You could have two neurodivergent children in your home and they're completely different. So that lends to the idea that parenting them exactly the same doesn't work. You
Doesn't.
want to, more than the label, you want to understand how their brain works.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, I start to see so much of myself in them, and more so my older daughter, especially when she really, there's a time, I would say beginning of the year, she really struggled with initiating tasks. Again, like here's all this and it feels so overwhelming. She doesn't want to start to dig in, and she worked with um like a time management coach and for executive functioning coach for a little bit that helps kind of tutor kids around that. And, that it actually helped a lot. Not with everything, but it helped with that specific thing.
Right.
And I found myself going back in time to when school became super overwhelming for me and felt like too much. And then I got behind. I was someone who wanted to do all the things, but then didn't have the capacity to do all the things. And what happened with me is I fell into just massive depression and anxiety and ended up having to leave school, suicidal ideation, like all of it. And I think that, I mean, and you talk about that a lot. It's like, oh, well, I had never even been talked about anything about ADHD, right? But that's what led to those diagnoses. And
Right.
but then to be like, well, these are your mental illnesses. Here's this path to therapy and drugs or whatever, which I felt very angry around because I felt like they messed me up more than they helped me as a teenager. Um, what are your thoughts around that of how an undiagnosed teen, is in this space and kind of gets to a really bad spot like I was? Like, what's that journey there, and how do we try to prevent it? Yes, talking more and more about it, but that's
Mhm.
my personal experience, and I try to talk about it as much as possible because I mean, the suicide rate for like globally is high, and
Yeah.
in kids. And it's like how much of this can be can be prevented, right?
Right. Well, this is a thing. I mean, I've had kids in my office as young as fourth grade cutting themselves because they know something's wrong with them and they don't know what. And there's
Yeah.
lots of different reasons for that. They could have gone to get evaluated and they were misdiagnosed. Their parents don't want to have them evaluated. They don't think anything is wrong with them. They just believe that they need to try harder. Maybe they haven't really even talked to anybody about it and nobody's noticed, and they're trying to do their own research, or they just actually think that something is wrong with them. So there's different reasons for that, but that's the thing with neurodivergent individuals is they are paying attention. They're really good at pattern recognition. They're also watching everybody around them, and they're hyper attuned to micro signals. They are noticing what's going on and they're internalizing everything and comparing themselves.
Yes.
Very sensitive to that. And so trying to figure out how come that seems so easy for them, or how come they're good at that, or they know that, or they were included. I'm doing that same thing. How come it's not working for me? I'm trying to copy what I'm seeing, and yet I'm not being included, or I'm not being as successful. And so,
Yeah.
yes, like recognizing that this is what's happening for teenagers. I'm really careful with adults that I don't want adults to feel shame for what they didn't know at the
Yeah.
time. All 7 of my children are neurodivergent. I've had 2 children attempt suicide. I'm very open about that. And I could spend the rest of my life beating myself up for things that I didn't know.
Yeah.
But you don't know what you don't know. And so this is why we do this, is to create more awareness and education. If you're not sure, just go have your child evaluated. Now, it's a different conversation when I see that adults will not go get their child evaluated because they don't want a label, or they will, excuse me, they're scared of what they might find. So we do, if we suspect anything, then I think it's good to go have a thorough evaluation done. But talk to your child. It's not just about the label or the diagnosis. How are they feeling at school? How are they feeling in class? What are they struggling with? You might catch more of what's going on with your child by talking to your child than just getting a label, because sometimes there is a misdiagnosis, right? So
Yeah.
talk to them about ADHD is just as much emotional dysregulation and being hypersensitive to the idea that they're being rejected or they're not lovable as it is distractibility. When we immediately default to what our experience was growing up, well, I didn't struggle with that. I could just get myself to do it, just try harder. When we default to that parenting, we're not taking the time to really listen to our child and understand what's going on with them.
Yeah.
So awareness and understanding is key, and that comes before anything else. Develop a relationship with your child where they feel comfortable sharing with you the things that are going on and where they actually are struggling. And remember that it's difficult for a child to be vulnerable that way. So
Mhm.
letting them know that you won't be disappointed in anything they have to say. You just want to know how to support and help them better. And I
Yeah.
even love the idea of just being their cheerleader. Dr. Dotson would talk a lot about this, that the people who are the most successful as adults who have ADHD had a cheerleader in their lives that said, listen, you're trying as hard as anyone could try. So if things aren't working well for you, then we've missed something. And I'm going to help you figure out what that is.
Yeah. That's huge. I mean, I
Mhm.
remember I don't know, a year or 2, like, getting in arguments with my husband because he'd be trying to, like, get her to start something, or "Why can't you focus?" or "Why can't you?" And I'd come in, I'd be like, "Because you don't know how she's wired. Let me talk to her. This is not working." Like, just getting, like,
Yes.
oh my gosh, I'm, like, having flashbacks of, like, my dad being like, "Why can't you? Why can't you?" And I'm just like, "I just can't." And she's crying, and I'm like, "This is And so everyone's, like, up here, and my husband's like, I don't."
Right, exactly. Well, different personalities understand different neurodivergent individuals.
Yes.
Usually, the ADHD parent has a lot more compassion for the
Right.
ADHD child, and the one who doesn't have ADHD, I mean, what it looks like is what it looks like. So I don't blame some parents for thinking,
Sure.
try harder, focus, stop being so lazy. But now I love where we're at this time where we are starting to understand more about neurodivergence and what it really is, and how much emotional dysregulation is a part of this, that it's wiring, it's not their personality, that the impulsive component of ADHD can take over and be very difficult for a child to learn to control. Having these conversations brings more awareness so that we're not just defaulting to, you should be able to do this better.
Right. Yeah. When you were talking about how empathetic they are and they're very, very aware of cues going on, and things at school. I mean, just last night, after a like really close final championship basketball game that was lost, and after Remy's just, not finishing her work, and Elsie's like, everyone hates me, She didn't say it. She didn't say that, but it was she was describing a situation at school, or how she feels at school when she is walking around and wants to insert herself in a conversation, like sees two of her friends, and she calls herself extremely awkward, and how she doesn't know how to like talk with people, and they think she's weird, and they're not really answering when she tries to engage in conversation. And she's like, it's all small talk, it's phones, it's TikTok, it's whatever. And she's like, I want to have like real conversations, they don't have to be like deep, but like, she's like, I'm like, what's wrong with teenagers? Like, I don't know how to fix that for you.
Yeah.
But she's getting very, very frustrated with that. So for someone, who has ADHD, who is highly sensitive and aware of all those things, and she's always taking it all in, and it's doing this in her head, what's like a simple tool that you would give her to kind of like reframe? And I've kind of been integrating the like, what's truth, you know what I mean, and then what is telling you, okay, this is true, let's get back here.
Right. Yeah. Well, because one of the struggles with neurodivergence is the immediate meaning that we attach to things instead of taking the time to interpret the meaning. So I'll teach my clients to pause, you like to actually pause and consider what's happening here, because your story or your brain is just going to take off without you. It's going to immediately attach a meaning and run with it, whether it's from RSD, which is rejection sensitive dysphoria, or it's from overstimulation. The brain just likes to take off. And so we want to allow our thoughts and not shame ourselves from our thoughts, but also recognize, like, just because my brain came up with it doesn't mean that it's true. So if my brain's going to offer me something, then I'm going to challenge it, because the thing it offers me usually hurts my feelings, and it makes me feel small or that I don't belong. So there's a lot of imagined rejection there, right? Like perceived rejection, or that I'm not being included. Maybe that's what's happening, but maybe there's something else there that I'm not totally aware of. So I will challenge my thoughts. In other words, I just kind of shelf this thought that my brain came up with. I can come back to it when I want to, but what else is true here? I make myself come up with 3 other neutral possibilities, because what I will usually find is something that's more true than, they think what I said was stupid, nobody here really likes me, this is so awkward, nobody's talking to me. If I can pause that for just a moment. And so pause is that interruption between my brain just took off without me, and wait a second, let me just think about this for a minute, right? For a hot minute, before my brain has just decided this is all true. Let me come up with some other logical, non-emotional explanations for this. At least give ourselves time to think about it, because what usually happens is you can't prove either one. You can't prove the one that makes you feel terrible. You can't completely prove the one that feels better. But if you can't prove either one, why are we always going with the one that feels terrible? We're usually wrong about that. So just teaching people to pause. And this is why, like, it's so important that ADHDers read up on RSD, or rejection sensitive dysphoria. What is it? What's part of my wiring? How does it look? How does it manifest in real life? So that when something happens and it feels so real to us, like this is happening, I know this is happening, they don't like me, they don't want me here, at least my brain knows, but I do have RSD. And so even when things feel very real, my brain wiring creates problems that aren't there. It tells me things that aren't true. So maybe that means I could go think about this before I decide to let it affect me this way.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I really love that. I think for ourselves, and also getting our kids through moments like that, you know what I mean? I mean, I even remember running my last business, and with my team, there would be some drama, and you would make a lot up. I would make a lot up about how I handled it or who did what to who. And like, is it a me problem? Is it them problem? And, I had a team member come to me and be like, that wasn't really the case. You're great. You're doing great.
Oops.
It was really kind of them. And sometimes we blow things up.
Mm-hmm.
We need to, right? We don't
Yeah.
need to.
Well, that's part of our wiring. I mean, and that's the thing. So many ADHDers are walking around feeling so much shame for the way that they react to these situations. And I really want my clients to understand and everybody to understand there is a difference between your personality and your wiring. Your
Yeah.
wiring is impulsive. It immediately jumps to the threat, to the assigned meaning, to the rejection. That's not your personality. And so if you don't know a lot about RSD, if you've never been given tools to manage RSD, then of course your brain's going to do that. You can't feel shame over something that you didn't know how to control. And also you didn't ask for, and no fault of your own. This is how your neurological system works. So the question I like to ask is always, well, what are we going to do about it? Let's not dwell in the past. Oh, I did this thing. I did that. It's over. It's done, right? What are we going to do about it? Let's learn how our brain operates, what the wiring is, and how to overcome that part of our wiring, because we can gain control of it. But when we are stuck in shame, we can't make any progress. It's over. Let's just move forward and figure out how to take control over RSD, something we didn't ask for. We never learned how to fix until now. But now, moving forward, I can learn how to stop the spiral and get out of this place where I feel rejected. It doesn't have to rule my life anymore.
Right. Do you find that along with that shame is kind of pairs with like being hurt, and like that hurt kind of maybe resides a lot deeper? And then the memory of that hurt, I feel like, even my oldest, like memory of hurt or something that, was painful is still you can draw up very strongly, things from my past that people may not even remember. I can remember clear as day. Like, is that kind of what you would say is part of our wiring? Is that sort of that memory, that tapping into, those feelings?
Definitely. ADHDers are the only ones I know that can take something that happened 10 years ago, think about it today, and it feels just as real today as it did the day that it happened. We're intense feelers. And sometimes that's a huge upside to having ADHD. But in this case, when we're thinking about the past, something that we wished hadn't happened, it can definitely feel like a negative thing. That's just how our brain works. We are emotionally connected to things. When we're up, we're up. And when we're down, we're down. And we're doing this a lot. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, thinking about the past. But what I teach my clients is the past can't actually cause you pain. It is not a true statement to say, I have such a painful past. The past is over. It cannot reach into today and cause you pain. What you're really saying is, I have a lot of painful thoughts about my past. So whenever I think of those thoughts, I create pain in my life. As we learn to reframe things, see it differently, say goodbye to the past, thank it for what it taught us, and move on, then we can overcome this idea that I have such a painful past, or I'm this way because of what happened to me in the past. That's the power of reframing things, choosing to see it differently. Even if it happened in the past, we can quite literally rewrite our past by changing the way that we experienced those things currently in our mind. And so there's a lot of mind work, thought work that can go into really combating a lot of the negative side of ADHD by reframing how we see things. It can help us manage our RSD. It can, when we stabilize our emotional dysregulation, we increase our self-confidence, and even our executive functioning deficits start to improve just by working on our emotional dysregulation.
Yeah, no, it's true. And I have only recently, from our December, like 5-week session or whatever that was, like learned of RSD and all, and implementing those, and how much better I just function in business and focus from January, February. It's been amazing. I'm like, oh my gosh, how much could I have done in my life if I only knew?
Well, most people don't think of that, right?
Yeah.
Well, they don't think, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just wanted to highlight what you just said. Most people think, oh, I have executive function deficits. I need to start with more executive function processes. And my coaching program says, no, start at the emotional regulation level, and all those things will start to get better.
Yeah. 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 I've seen it work in my life. It's phenomenal. And it's, oh my gosh. And it's life changing. You talk about don't send your kids to therapy, send them to coaching. And you mentioned like, yes, therapy is great and there's time and place and all those things. And that's the video I had my daughter watch, being like, do you resonate with Jheri? Like, what do you think of this? And she's just like, yes to all those things she said, because my daughter is one that has been in and out of therapy since like second, third grade, since itty bitty, right? And she's so from 8 to 15 years old. And she has found that therapy, we're digging up the past, right? And we're reliving it and reliving it. And she's like, I want to keep like reliving it. She's like, I'm very self-aware. They tell me things that I already know about myself, but I'm not getting like tools and resources and how to help me through these situations. And they tried, even as a little kid, like, here's this book and this animals and feelings. And when you're this animal, and this is how you work through it. And she's like, I'm not a freaking porcupine. Like, like in third grade, I'm like, well, this is the tool the therapist gave you. So let's try it. You know what I mean? And ADHD mom is here like, I should complete the book, and she's only on porcupine and she should be on dolphin. And, like, it's just,
the sky is falling.
the sky's falling. And it did. COVID hit. And I was like, okay, well, this is over for everyone.
Yeah.
But I really love that. And so what's your main take on when it comes to, therapy and coaching? Because it's a new world, I think, for a lot of people to kind of venture into, I guess, because it's just therapy is more mainstream. It's insurance can cover it. And it's recommendations are more common, I think, in that space, right?
Yeah.
But I just don't think it's necessarily the best option, especially for in my family, right? And kids with ADHD and have some specific stuff to work on.
Yeah, I'm pretty vocal about this on my page, and I am careful to say. I mean, I have a family of medical doctors, and I mean, so I'm not trying to really harp on therapists and counselors. It's just that when it comes to ADHD, you want to work with someone who has a lot of experience with ADHD. They've lived it. They've overcome the same things that you've overcome. They really understand your brain, and they know how to teach you to rewire your brain. I mean, I just look at the numbers Dr. Dodson gave me on psychiatrists, and he said 93% of psychiatrists today have no idea how to properly treat ADHD. That's a shockingly high number, as a psychiatrist. So then you look at therapists and counselors, they just, one of the problems is they don't easily identify, many of them, not all of them, different, multiple diagnoses, some of the problems that if you have ADHD, there's just a different language that you speak. And so this just comes from my experience. I went to counseling and therapy. I was a single mother of 6 children for a long time. My children did. Nothing was helping them. I mean, nothing. They weren't getting proper diagnoses from the doctors, therapy. They weren't talking. They weren't getting help. They didn't feel that people understood them. And then the majority of my clients have been in therapy for 1 or 2 years. They're still engaging in self-harm. They don't understand themselves. They don't have real life tools that they can stop what they're doing immediately at school, write some things out, and get through what they're going through. They don't know how to motivate their brain. So I do think, just as you mentioned earlier, there's a time and place for specific kinds of therapies and counseling. But when it comes to neurodivergent individuals, I feel strongly that ADHD or neurodivergent specialized behavioral coaching is really a much better option for most individuals, where they're learning about their brain. They're learning how to overcome executive function deficits, and they're approaching it, at least in my coaching practice, we're approaching it from an emotional dysregulation level, which I have to be honest, I don't hear a lot of executive function coaches talking about that. I'm sure eventually it will catch on, but and really, for example, in my coaching practice, I'm combining everything we know about the neurodivergent brain, how it works, how it gets engaged, how it overcomes procrastination, self-confidence, how we increase that, how we undo years of habitual people pleasing and imposter syndrome, and then also teaching an emotional regulation model so that they can learn to become regulated, increasing self-confidence, overcoming RSD episodes. We're putting all of that together to help them come up with their own owner's manual and understanding of how their ADHD really works for them,
Yeah.
because everybody's going to be a little bit different too. What works for one person might be different than works for another person. So you have to have somebody that can put all of that together for you. That most ADHDers, they know what needs to be done. They're very smart. They don't know how to get their brain to do it. And so
Yeah.
that's the missing piece, is the right language and speaking to their brain and what works for their brain.
Yeah. Yeah. How much do I walk around the house being like, focus, Carly, just focus, focus, Carly, focus. Like I talk to myself all the time. We got to give ourselves.
We all do.
You
We all
know,
talk to
really
ourselves.
good. I think it's important
It works.
to have an open conversation with ourselves.
Highly recommend. 10 out of 10.
Yes. I want to, for like the last little bit here, and we might split this into 2 episodes. So if I do, Carly, here's the spot to split into 2 episodes. If not, let's keep going.
Thanks so much for joining us. Please stay tuned for next week when we launch part 2 of this awesome interview with Jheri South. See you then.